We're talking about writing, and in particular, we're talking about reluctance in children. My son Holmes, a day or so ago, said to me, "You know, Dad, it seems to me that I keep reading that the number one fear in America is speaking in public." And I said, "Son, I think that's right." He said, "I think there's one bigger than that." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Somebody reading what you've written aloud in public." Well, he might be right. This is on his mind because he's very busy. Writing essays and applying to colleges and getting into life past high school. Well, what I would like to do is just invite you as we talk about the writing course and what it can mean to you and to your family, to your children. I just want to walk through a few concrete thoughts about overcoming resistance, because that's who this is for, especially. I mean, people, I have letters here from all over the world. I mean, all over the world of people who have had children who were reluctant and now they're happy. Even people who had children who loved writing, but now they love it all the more. I can't say this is a match for everybody, but I can say that we have, just like you, been a family, 5 children. I've tried to figure out, how do I help them learn? How do I get them to enjoy writing like I learned to enjoy? And as I wrestled with that, I realized I had the same problems that they did. And the lessons I learned in a lifetime of struggle, and especially later in my life when I began to make a real study of what causes resistance and fear and hesitation in writing, I began to uncover 12 principles that when they are embraced and just understood and applied just a little, reluctance begins to go away. Even though I'm just a dad and schooled my kids, I have a little bit of an advantage. Maybe I was lucky, maybe I was blessed by the Lord and His providence. But the advantage is I have a doctorate that relates to systems, and I have a degree in English literature, and I helped start a private classical education school. And in the process of having to write the 6 books that I have out there, I've had to really pay attention to how this works, all the while teaching children, tutoring and developing eventually a larger seminar, and now this supplement, this curriculum. Well, with that in mind, let me just let you think for a moment about reluctance, because that's what I care most about. Children who are honestly reluctant to write. And when I say reluctant, I mean the letters I've gotten of children who they come to tears every day when it's time to write in a homeschooling context, or tears at nighttime when they have to write because it's due at school the next day. A reluctance of sitting there for not minutes, but maybe an hour and not writing a word, not writing 2 words, not writing 3 words. That's reluctance. What's going on in the soul of a child so that putting words on paper, not even words that particularly count, why in the world, just practice, why would that be such a trauma? Sometimes, rarely, but sometimes it's mom and dad. Their standards are so high, the kid has to write so perfectly to begin with, they're almost defeated before they begin, but it's usually not that. It's really the combination of things that go into the challenges that we have in writing. The issue is that we are reluctant because we don't want to do it poorly. That's really all there is to it, but that idea of doing it poorly translates into a lot of areas. For example, we might not know what to write about, so we don't want to write about something dumb. We might have issues with grammar, so we don't want to sound stupid. We might have issues with punctuation, so we don't want to punctuate it in the wrong way to get corrected. It might be issues in logic. What we're going to say doesn't make sense, especially with essays. We are kind of caught in all these things related to how we're perceived, how well we can do, and how to get in motion with handling language. You know, the writing course actually addresses every one of those things. In fact, it addresses even more, because it is fundamentally focused on overcoming all the things that make people afraid to write. And when you overcome those things, it translates into really joy, a lot more fun. In fact, if you think about reluctance in particular, it's kind of like that who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who's reluctant? Well, almost everyone is, unless they're addled. At some point or another, we're all reluctant about something, jumping off the high dive or leaving home or writing or giving a speech. What? Well, the reluctance is that there's a fear in place, that we see a threat ahead. And if you see a bridge that's about to fall over, you don't cross it because you're not addled. When? Well, when we sit down to do an activity that we've assigned a kind of importance to, that makes it that the bridge can't fall. So it really must be that good. Who, what, when, where, why, or where is obviously in the place or in the circumstance or context. Why? That's what we're getting to. And the why is that there are things related to ourselves and related to our skills, both of which make us hesitate. The writing course attacks the issues related to the way people think about themselves and relates exactly to the skills, so that these large categories of problems are solved. And solved, in my experience, solved forever, once a new understanding and new practices are in place. So look, my story is pretty simple. I grew up, I had an uncle who was a writer, pretty kind of famous or budding famous one, died really young. Dad was a really good writer. Had a brother who wrote, he was 4 years older, wrote for the school newspaper, and he was a big deal with that, at least in my little mind. I had all this pressure, interest, and love for it. And then I took the college entrance exam, and I made overall a really good grade. But my grade in English was almost half of my grade in that section. It was I had such high math and reading and other things that it overcame my writing. But the writing section, I flunked it. I mean, functionally, I flunked it. And so I began on a quest back then to figure out, how does this work? How could I have flunked it? And it turns out that I was obsessed with rules and doing it right and not tuned into the nature of what writing really is. It's about sound. It's about saying things in a way that you want people to read them, and that's what I began to uncover. And there were other issues as I went along which I wanted to write. I was desperate to write. The first book I ever wrote and did a presentation on it, I had a legitimate, I've had two of them in my life, I know what they are, panic attack. Actually, I've had three. Panic attack. And as a result, had a migraine, was sick. I just overran my system with adrenaline. I was so scared. Even though I'd made myself right by telling myself anything worth saying is worth saying poorly, I still had not overcome all that resistance in my soul. And I was one of these tortured ones that I wanted to write and I had all the resistance. A lot of your kids don't want to write, have only resistance. So that's why you see no fits and starts. It's the nature of the game. Well, in that story, as I went along and grew up and started working on it, I basically went part-time at my job for 2 years with the goal of figuring out how to write. And in that time, I wrote a book on fiction on relationships called Glain, Glaen. And I, in that process, learned a great deal and began to unravel and solve what makes us hesitate, what makes children cry, and how to fix it. There are four things that if you come over, or rather overcome reluctance, you're going to see. If your child gets this curriculum and gets in process of taking the notes and doing the exercises, he or she, I know it's going to turn to smiles. I know I do this. I have letter after letter. Dear Dr. Lybrand, my child couldn't write 3 sentences. Now my child writes 3 pages. My child now is entering a novel he wrote in a contest. Wouldn't write a page before. I have files and files of this exact kind of conversation of people who have been so grateful because I suffered and shared with them out of my misery lessons I would have loved to learn when I was 11 or 14 or 18 or 27, any time. So here's what I want you to know. First off, When fear leaves, the fun begins, because that's where skill develops. See, you can't instantly be a great writer. You have to work at it and work at it. Even Mozart had to learn the scale. I mean, come on. But when fear leaves, the fun begins. And when someone loves and enjoys what they do and gets into what they do, the process of writing, I'm going to argue, everything begins to change. So if we get the fear out of the way, we have them start developing the real skill. And they're fearful because they're just defending themselves. And we take away the need to defend themselves from anything or anybody. The second thing you need to know about learning the skills that we're going to teach in the writing course, this overcoming reluctance, is that getting into school and getting scholarships, writing has a really big role in that. And the amount of money that's going to be saved, the things that are going to be acquired by being in better schools and better curriculums and having access to better teachers and better relationships for business world, ministry world, relational world, it doesn't matter. Learning to write, being in this process of overcoming reluctance and developing the skill, means for a fact that they're going to be able to write their way into better schools. Or let me say it this way, they may want to go to a school but they're not writing well, they won't let them in. Just telling you the truth, competition is still really big, and it comes down to small things like this. Additionally, I would tell you that scholarships, I mean, that's part of it, essays for scholarships. There are also curriculums they get in because they can write well, or curriculums they can't get in. That being neither here nor there, just understand the nature of the college and the nature of how school is paid for is intimately connected to writing. And if they overcome reluctance early, right, and then develop the skills, they have a real shot at something great. The third thing I want you to understand that the writing course really does for students is in learning to overcome the fear of writing, they also learn to overcome all kinds of other fears because it's the same principles. Hopefully you've gotten the 3 free lessons and you've discovered one of the principles is to write in 3 stages: okay, get help, and make it great. Let me tell you, in athletics, in business, in all endeavors of competition, that's how people grow. They start with okay. You can't start with perfect. And then they get some help, coach or someone like me, someone like the writing course, right? And they make it great. Just understanding those stages is transformational. Here's the fourth little thing that owning this course and using this course will do for you and your family. If you have conflict over getting your kids to write, helping them write, making them learn to write, if you have a context in which you have tension or tears or frustration and they're mad at you, mom, or maybe mad at you, dad, that gets to go away. You have become a hero because you took a chance to buy a course, play some audios, print out a workbook, had them write it through, do the exercise, go through that information, and then start practicing and you grading the way we exactly show you how. You know exactly what to mark on their paper to help them improve. The tears start going away. You team up. We show you how to team up as a parent and a child, or if you're tutoring people as a tutor and a child, or if you're teaching people as a teacher and a student, right? That relationship is, I mean, it's valueless. I mean, it's invaluable. There's no way to measure it. Those are just 4 of dozens of things that we see coming out of people who have learned, learned and embraced the writing course. How it overcomes this resistance, this issue of fear, and how it relates to learning how to overcome fears in other areas, and specifically how it relates to school in the future and how it relates to relationships of students and teachers or parents and kids. Here's what you get. You get the writing course, 21 lessons. They're all audios. There's a reason for that. On iPod and travel and other contexts, making them use their own eye gate as they write instead of just depending on the video. We found to be very strategic. You get a workbook. You print out the workbook. You can do it every year. In fact, we do this with our kids. Every year they go through the writing course once again. So they get 21 audio lessons, they get a workbook, you get a complete transcript of all the audio lessons so they can read it too, or you can read it as well. You also get the essay course. Here's another 18 lessons on how to do essays. You use this for older children, but how to quickly, in about 2 minutes, formulate a strategy for an essay. So for timed essays, timed tests. Greatest compliment I've ever gotten on this was from my daughter's teachers who teach her first semester in college, who called her in and said, "I've never seen a timed essay as good as yours. Would you please let me use it and another example of yours as examples in my other classes to show them how I want essays written?" That's particularly cool because my daughter did not do well on the testing in grammar like her daddy. And so she was on double secret probation and yet showed up in school and did great because she had the skill. What else you get is access to videos. I haven't excluded them. There are 13 videos to do teaching through the 12 principles I mentioned, and actually a 13th that we've added that's kind of strategic and fun. Writing course, essay course, use it with every student you have. Use it again and again every year. You go online, you can watch videos, and then on top of it all, you have access to an archive and a monthly meeting online where you can ask me questions directly. Anything to do with writing, anything to do with helping your child learn to write. We just go over principles, we answer questions. You can get those archives, listen to any of the previous once-a-month meetings, and just saturate in your understanding what goes into completely freeing your child so that he or she can blossom into the writer they're really meant to be, regardless of their field of life. How valuable solid writing will be. So what I want you to do is buy the course. Just go down there, get it. Give you a 99-day money-back guarantee. Fill out the workbook, try it. If it doesn't work, send it in. There is no issue. There is no hassle. If it doesn't work for you, why would I want it to be in your home? But if it works for you, here's one more family, one at a time, that is recovering writing for the next generation. You could be a part of that. And I'd love to see it. And I'll tell you the last thing that's going to benefit you when you go down there and buy it, get all that goes with it, is you can use this too. If you go through this yourself, you're going to learn the exact things you need to learn to free up your writing. The reason I know this is because all the struggles you have with writing were developed when you were a kid. So unless you go back and relearn what you needed to have learned then that they didn't teach you, well-meaning as they are, not saying dump your curriculums, I'm cheering for them. But I'm telling you, this is a unique way to understand and supplement the issues related to fear. Most of what happens in schooling is just reinforces our fear. You don't need that. If you want to learn to write, this is just kind of an aside bonus. You can use this exact material and it'll translate into massive change in your life. Not unlike you might think about phonics. You know, adults that can't read, they just need to go back and do what the kids do. Learn the code, learn the phonics, start practicing, and they get there. Well, what we're offering you, what you have an opportunity right now to go get, is a supplement to your curriculum that could be a curriculum, but a supplement that is designed to remove fear, remove reluctance, make smiles come back, and give the world what it needs, some fresh minds with good hearts that know how to communicate with written words. Look forward to working with you in the days ahead. Goodbye.